What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this shirt is a lie. Kings don't reign here. Unless they're the Braves. Go Braves. Good job, guys. But yeah, no, I mean, just what a disappointing way to finish our season out. And I talked about it a bit in the last video, but I'll address kind of a bit more at the end of the season and then talk about the final game and basically what I want to see for the future. But yeah, I mean, just. I said it last time. I didn't have a whole lot of hope going into the playoffs. I mean, the way we were playing, it wasn't going to be good enough. We were not playing well enough. We weren't really putting forth a lot of effort. They were like 70% max as far as effort. And it showed, the amount of games and points that we gave up, and ultimately getting into the final game of the season, or well, first game of the playoffs, final game of our season, we shot ourselves in the foot. We put ourselves at a disadvantage because we didn't get the job done. Because if we had just won a couple of games where we were ahead and we were comfortably in control, or even if we had played well in some games where we narrowly won, like against Inter Miami or against Cincinnati, we were 2 goals away from being above New York City on goal difference. So if we had done any of those things, held the 1-0 win against New York City, held the 1-0 win against Toronto, beat Inter Miami or Cincinnati by more than 2-1, or 2-1, if we had done any of that, we would not be having to go to the crappiest field in the MLS. And that's a whole issue. You don't want to play at New York City. Like, they can afford 50 mini pitches, but somehow can't afford to build their own stadium? Weird. MLS people in charge, you're just going to let that happen? No, don't worry. It's New York City, guys. We love New York City. They told us they were going to do it, but you know what? It's fine. They can play on that crappy field where only they, benefit from it. Nobody else plays well there. But that's a whole nother issue. That's not our problem. That's MLS people in charge problem. And of course, just like everything else in America, money talks. And yeah, they get away with whatever they want because they have all the money. So that's an issue, but we should do our job before then. We should do our job enough to where they have to come play at our place, which is difficult for them because they're used to playing on that tiny little compact field where they can just press very easily. No team can play there because there's so little room to play, and they're used to that. On our field, it's a lot bigger, much more a normal professional soccer field, not the tiny little high school field on a baseball field. All things, but it's more difficult for New York City to come play us, so we didn't do that. So then we go there, and it's not impossible to win there. This New York City team, they're not quite the same level that we've come to expect out of New York City. For the past few years that we've played them, maybe not last year because I didn't watch any of the games, but when we faced New York City 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they were a tough team. They had some really talented stars. They had a good team dynamic. They were tough to play against. This is not the same New York City team. They're not an easy team by any means in the MLS, but they're not as tough as they have been. So we should go in and we should put on our best display. We should work hard and we should get the result. But we didn't. We went in again 50 to 70%. Honestly, I'd probably say about 50%. And it's been happening. And I was holding out hope, not much, a little bit of hope that it wasn't the coach and it wasn't the players, that it was just the big run of fixtures that we had back to back to back to back. I was hoping that's what's been going on towards the end of the season. All these games where we were playing so lackluster. I was hoping it was just a fitness thing. But then they took 2 weeks off. They had a chance to rest. Some of them did go play international, but it wasn't like several games. It was 1 or 2 at most. And they come back, and they still look just as slow, just as lackluster, no energy at all. So it comes down to a mentality issue. And on that note, I don't think Pineda's the one to bring us forward. Just looking at how we've played under him, these performances show. And so I'll talk about Pineda in a second, but first let's talk about the New York City game, because after the Cincinnati game, I was expecting to see some sort of turnaround. Because, yeah, we won not well. We did not play well in that game. First half, we got dominated by Cincinnati, and they scored probably the easiest goal they'll score all season. Super easy to just dribble across the top of the box. Nobody puts pressure. Super easy to tap it in on the far corner. Such a terrible goal to give up. The defending on that was awful. We turned it around second half. Don't know how, but turned up the quality for about 10-15 minutes. Got 2 goals and 1. Narrow win, but you know what? It's something to build on. But we didn't. We go into this game against New York City. Same stuff. Slow, dull, lazy. The passing is just so predictable. Defending, we're so slow. And let's talk about the goals, because I honestly thought there would not be a worse goal we could give up than the one we did against Cincinnati. And it's like everybody on the defensive side of things said, hold my beer. We're going to give up not 1, but 2 goals that are even worse than the ones we gave up against Cincinnati. I didn't think it was possible. I honestly, when I watched that goal, I thought to myself, we cannot get lazier than that. To just watch it as a guy dribbles across the top of the box and has a shot and stand and watch, we can't get worse than that. Well, how about this? How about we stand and watch as a guy has a half volley. No, it was a volley. I can't remember now. I'm trying to block the game out of my mind, to be honest. Let's watch him have a volley that bounces into the ground, and we all stand and watch as it loops into the back of the net. Really? Nobody moved? Bello could have cleared it off the line. There was a guy there. If the guy blocks Bello off from getting to the ball, guess what? That guy's offside. And he's interfering with the play. But because Bello didn't even make a move toward it, the guy was not involved in the play. So all you had to do was just try to kick the ball out of the net. And you couldn't even do that. You didn't even have to actually clear it off the line. You just had to kick it, or make an attempt to kick it. And then that guy's in your way, and then he's offside. But because you didn't even make an attempt, he's not offside. Crazy, isn't it? All you had to do was make an attempt, and it's not a goal? Insane. But wait a minute, because we're not done yet. Let's have it to where a shot comes in. I can't remember if Guzan got a touch on it or not, but off the crossbar, straight up in the air. And what does our defense do? Oh, that was a close shot. Oh, man. Oh, that's staying in play, isn't it? Oh, man. Oh, I wonder if one of us should get to... Oh, wait, he's already headed it in. Darn. Really? We're standing and watching now. That's how we're defending. Standing and watching. Whew. As somebody who is very defensive-minded, I was a defender not all the time. I used to play like midfield. I played all around. I was sort of a versatile player because I didn't really know what I wanted to play. But when I started playing, at like the amateur level, I was a defender. And even coaching, I was a goalkeeper coach because I understand defending. I understand positioning. That's where my brain is. I understand it. Watching that game, if I were the coach, everybody in that defense would be gone. I would talk to the board and say, I don't want any of them on my team anymore because that was embarrassing. Say what you will about the attack and how awful the attack was. They were bad too. But that is just lazy. It's a lack of desire. It's a lack of wanting to do anything. To just stand and watch. So yeah, I stopped watching actually after the second goal. I know Franco got a red card, so I don't even know what happened there. But yeah, I couldn't watch that anymore. After the first goal went in, I was in shock at how lazy that was. And then the second one went in under nearly the same circumstances of everybody just standing and watching. And I couldn't anymore. I can't support a team that's not even going to try. Like, you're getting paid to do this. This is your job. When some of us are playing at, amateur semi-pro level, and we're out there, we're busting it, we're not doing it for money. In fact, I had to pay money to play at the amateur level because we had to pay for referees and jerseys and stuff. So we had to pay to play, and we were still putting in 100 times more effort than these guys that are making, what, like millions of dollars a year to play? There's no excuse. So, in my opinion, done talking about the game, kind of transitioning into looking toward the future and looking toward next season. What are we going to do during, the off season? First of all, defensive coach, whoever he is, has got to go. Because I don't know who the guy is. I don't really know anybody on our coaching staff outside of, head coach and Valentino. Whoever the defensive coach is, has got to go. Because I'm watching that and I'm thinking, that's embarrassing. And that reflects on the coaching staff too. So he's got to be gone. Talk about the players in a second, but backroom staff, head coach, we got to make changes. Pineda is not good enough. I honestly think, we won our first few games. I think we drew our first game under him, and we won our next couple games after that. But since then, it's slowly drifted into cruise control and casual play, and that's not good enough. Under Tata, there were times when we put it in cruise control, but we had Almiron. We had Parkhurst. We had, Martinez was at the top of his game that year. You had all these players that just knew the game. Laurentowicz in the midfield. Rometty was there at one time. Just all these players. Nagby, forgot about the other major player in there. All these players that knew what they were doing and did it well. And so we could play in cruise control because we had so much talent. Almiron was better than the MLS, which is why he left. Right now, we don't have players that are better than the MLS. We have a couple good MLS players like Robinson, like Martinez sometimes, Barco sometimes, Moreno. We've got good MLS players, but if they're not going to play well, then they're not going to do well. Because none of these players I can look at and say, yeah, I can see them play at a higher level. Maybe Robinson, just because, he has been doing well, but recently, not so much. But everybody else on the team, I look at them and I'm like, these are MLS quality players. At one time, Joseph, I would have said he was better than the MLS, but since he's come back from his injury, no. He's very average MLS player. So, if we're not working hard, if we're not playing as a team, we're not going to do well. That's just the base of it. We are at the talent we have, we're at a point where we've got to play as a team or we're not going to win games. And Pineda's can't do that. I mean, that's all he had to do. Formation doesn't matter. Personnel mostly doesn't matter. Subs don't really matter. You can put in most of these players interchangeably. It doesn't matter. You've just got to get them, one, working hard, and two, working as a team. That's all you had to do, and he couldn't do it. He's not good enough. So, in my opinion, what should have happened is Valentino takes over, does well, maybe just stick with him to the end of the season and look for the right fit. Look for the coach that's going to come in and do what we need him to do. But instead, Bocanegra, like the idiot he is, just, let's go get this guy. He's young. He's been in the MLS for a little bit. Let's go get him. Hey, let's get this Petey guy, right? He can replace Almiron, right? Like, yeah, he's doing it down here. Surely he can come up here and do it. It's just, the recruitment at the coach level and at the player level has got to get better. Bocanegra, he's not cutting it. He played for the U.S. at a time whenever they didn't understand soccer. They were just good athletes. So, pretty sure he played for the U.S., right? Yeah. My mind is not failing me this time. But, you listen to most of those guys. Lawless is one of my favorites to make fun of. Because he thinks he understands the sport so well, but he doesn't. He's just an idiot. But they all played around that same time where the U.S. were not one of the best teams in the world, but we were a force to be reckoned with because we had good athletes and then we had two quality finishers in Dempsey and Donovan that just absolutely knew what they were doing up top. So all you had to do was just have most of our midfield and defense just run people to death. They didn't have to know how to pass. They didn't know how to know how to play intricately and move the ball so delicately and fancy and tiki taka and all this stuff. You didn't have to have that. You just had a bunch of good athletes and two quality finishers, and that's the only reason you were good. And yet you listen to Lawless talk, and he thinks he was the best of the best. And it just, that's what these guys are. So in my opinion, Bocanegra should be gone. But of course they just signed him to a new contract because idiots. So we're stuck with him, and his terrible recruitment has only gotten us like one good player this year in Moreno. Araujo, jury's out on him. He started well, but slowly kind of faded into obscurity. So all those people that I'm sure they're going to come on and be like, no, Araujo's good. He was, but now, what did he do in the past, 5 games? Next to nothing. So his recruitment's not been good enough. So Bocanegra needs to go. Pineda needs to go. Valentino, I don't mind keeping him around just because you could tell he at least brought the team together. And part of it was probably down to Heinze leaving. I think there was that real team mentality of guys were finally out from under this guy's thumb. Hallelujah. And it was just that nice team feel. I think Valentino did a good job of bringing them together and say, hey, let's do this. So it wasn't necessarily he was a great coach. I think he was just the right motivator at that time to get them playing well as a team, to get out from under this awful feeling of playing under a guy that was a terrible person and a terrible coach. And that's why we did well under Valentino. And then you bring in Pineda, and it just feels like he doesn't understand how to keep them together as a team. And now they're playing as individuals again. It's back to what we saw under DeBoer, a lot of slow, dull play, passing around the back, no movement up front. It's the same. So we've got to find somebody who can motivate this team to play together and work hard 100% of the time. But of course now we're probably going to be stuck with Pineda for another year or so, because we went and rushed and we got somebody in and they're not going to be good enough, but we got to stick with them. And it's just going to be frustrating because we'll probably do just well enough to make playoffs. And for a lot of people, they're just like, yeah, that's fine. That shouldn't be fine. We should be striving to be the best of the best. We should be striving to be the best team in the league. But instead, we're just happy with mediocrity. We're happy with sitting just in playoffs. And maybe we'll get lucky enough to win it one year. How about we're just good enough to win everything? To be the top of the league, go into playoffs and be comfortably through and win the MLS Cup. How about we're just good enough, not lucky enough? And that's where I'm standing right now. And I'm sure I'm not the only one. I think it's probably the minority because a lot of people are just happy with the mediocrity from what I have seen on social media. Of course, social media is not a great place to be for all of this. But in reality, where we were, and even the talent that we have now, we've got enough talent to say we should be the best of the best. We just have to play as a team. I think Martinez is good enough. He's one of the best in the MLS. Barco can be one of the best. Araujo, at times, has shown he's one of the best. Moreno's very good as well. In the midfield, we're a little lacking. And then the defense, that's something I'll talk about in a second. But we have enough talent around the field. If we could just get the right manager in that can get this team to work together, we would be the best in the league. Nobody could stop us. But we're just settling for Pineda. And that's where we are, unfortunately. So, anyways, that's kind of where I am on as far as the coaching staff. Looking ahead, player-wise, transfer-wise, all of that fun stuff. We need defenders. First and foremost, we need defenders, and then we need midfielders. Those are the two major things that we need right now. Goalkeeper, Guzan, I haven't heard much about whether or not he's going to be leaving or staying. I know Khan, whatever, however you pronounce it, he has shown his moments as well. He's not quite as consistent as Guzan can be, but he's good enough right now, I think. So goalkeeper, maybe look at trying to bring somebody more first team in if Guzan's looking to leave. But that's not a huge worry. Defense right now is a huge worry for me. Because one, I don't think we as a club and a coaching staff, I don't think we know what we're doing defensively yet. Because you look at the defense we have right now. We've got Robinson, best defender although he needs to step it up. I don't know what's going on with him. Ever since he had that great run for the U.S. during the summer, really dropped off. So I don't know if it's going to his head, maybe cockiness, or maybe all of the pressure because the media is shining a spotlight on him. Whatever's going on, really dropped off. Walks has his moments. He's okay, but then also has his moments where Franco is doing okay. Near the end of the season, he did get better. I still don't think he's worth DP money, but good enough, I guess. Campbell showed a lot of bright spots, but for some reason not really featuring much in the team for, I don't know why. I watched him play those few games, and I'm thinking he's better than Franco. And then he never featured again. So, yeah, I don't know what's going on there. But we've got those four. Problem is there's no organization there. There's nobody like a Parkhurst or like a Thiago Silva at Chelsea. Nobody is in there that can direct the play, that can be the leader, that old guard that knows what he's doing, that has the head for the game. They're all just kind of decent defenders. They can defend in a one-on-one situation. They can defend when it's chasing back. But when it comes to positioning, when it comes to when to step out, when it comes to who to mark, a lot of them don't know what they're doing. And it showed several times. I mean, there was that one that Franco had to make the last-ditch challenge on. Both Lennon and Miles were just like, what do we do? And it just goes right through. So, way too many moments of that where it's just getting caught out because the positioning is bad or just not knowing who's got whose man is who. It's just, there's no communication back there. So we got to get somebody in that can organize that defense more. And we also need to figure out, are we playing back three or back two? Are we playing three center backs or two center backs? If we're playing three, that means we've got wing backs. We've got players that can get up in the attack, but also defend as well. They can do a bit of both. If we're playing back four, we got players that can defend well and then maybe get up in the attack. Because right now we don't know what we're doing. We've got Bello, who's good in the attack, not great in defense. We've got Lennon, who's good in the defense, not great in the attack. So we've got a fullback, and then we've got a wingback. You see the problem here. What are we going to go with? Mulroney, a wingback. So we've got two left wingbacks. Right side, Lennon is a fullback. Hernandez, haven't seen enough of him. Kind of seems a bit more of a fullback, but not really sure. So there's just not really a sense of what our defense is supposed to be. So I feel like we either need to go get some more wingbacks on the right side or need to go get some more fullbacks on the left side. So that way we have more of a sense of an identity of what our defense is. So experienced defender, pick your poison, whether you want to go with the back four or back three, whichever one. But you need to pick so that way you can go into the transfer market and say, all right, we want this type of wide player in our defense. We either want somebody that can go up in the attack like Bello on the right side, or we want somebody that's better defensively like Lennon on the left side. So that's the defense hopefully sorted out in the transfer. But they need to actually go and do some research and find people, not just, hey, yeah, he was good, wasn't he, in that lower league in Brazil? None of that, please. Actually go find somebody that's going to come in and do the job well. And then in the midfield, yeah, we've got to make some changes there because we were losing the midfield a lot against New York City. And it's just down to Rossetto, decent creative player, not a defensive or holding midfielder. And then Sosa, decent defending midfielder, but not much of a distributor, creative, get it going forward. So it's like they had one of both, but they didn't really work together in tandem. It was like they're very disorganized. So we need to find somebody who's going to be a bit more consistent in the midfield. Somebody who knows their role and can work alongside somebody else and sort of almost connect them together. But yeah, just we need more midfielders in general, though. Not just outside of the players and the quality that we have in there. We just need more numbers because Sosa, Rossetto, and Ibarra was basically all we had. Mo Adams, I guess you could say, is technically a midfielder, but not really. But those are the three that we had for those two positions. And, we lost Heinemann. I don't even want to talk about Sejdic because I don't rate him either. But yeah, we need something else in there because Sosa, Rossetto, Ibarra, even Heineman, none of them are really top level in the MLS. They're just kind of somewhere in the middle. Sosa at times had his moments where he was good, but a lot of very off games and a lot of games where it felt like he wasn't really doing what we needed him to do in there. So those would be my top picks. Obviously I don't know who, but that's also not my job to go and research and see who would be a good fit. But that's what they should be doing. And honestly, I don't feel like that's what they do. I feel like they just go and they say, "Hey, he's on the transfer list and he looks pretty good in this league that's probably not as good as the MLS. Why don't we bring him in and see what he can do?" And it's just a different league. It's not the same level. It's just they always do this and it feels like it hasn't worked. So really need to do some research there. But yeah, I mean, there's just got to be something that changes because it feels like we went from Tata, who was really, really good. We had some good players, manager that knew what to do with his team, manager that knew how to motivate his team and get them working together. Then we went to De Boer. Frank De Boering. Just slow, dull play. Teams were not working as a team. This is a team of individuals not working together, not building, just trying to play that possession play, but it's also slow, which means that nobody up top is moving. They're all waiting for the game to come to them, and so it's just a lot of possession with no sense of urgency and no sense of attack. So it was just dull. It wasn't terrible, but it was dull. And then we get Heinze, and he's terrible. He's an awful coach. Terrible things he did to the team. Not justifying any of that. He was an awful coach. And then we bring in Pineda, and it's back to what we were under De Boer. But that's not good enough. I want to get back up to what we were under Tata. And I'm not saying we have to be the same exact team as we were under Tata, because it's not comparable. Different managers, different players. You can't compare the two teams. However, the level that we were playing under Tata, the amount of quality and the amount of work that we were showing under Tata, that's what I want to see. I want to see a team that's going to work hard for each other. A team that's going to work together. I mean, God, just watching that NYC game, that moment in the second half, I think it was. No, it was in the first half, actually. That moment where Barco's cutting at the top of the box and cutting back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And everybody is standing and watching him. And all I can think is, somebody make a run for him. Do something that he can look up and see, oh, good, I've got an option now. But no, nobody's making a run. They lays it off to Moreno, who also cuts. Nobody's making a run. Stagnant attack. Somebody do something. And then, of course, the defending later. It's also awful. So, just so much in this team, really. There's so much, it feels like rot. Players that aren't helping, managers that don't know what they're doing. There's just so much about this that isn't going right now. That, yeah, we made the playoffs. Wasn't good enough. So, I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just frustrated. Maybe I have my expectations too high. But hey, I mean, if my expectations are too high, maybe I don't want to support this team because, I mean, honestly, I wasn't a fan of the MLS to begin with. I know I've said this before in past videos. I was not an MLS fan. I'm still not an MLS fan. The quality isn't good enough. The referees are frustrating to watch. The atmosphere really doesn't quite feel the same. Teams that are losing, teams that are doing poorly, it doesn't matter. We'll get them next year, guys. Some of these teams shouldn't have a next year. Some of these teams have been terrible and continue to be terrible, and they're just allowed to stay in the league because of it, because there's no urgency. There's nothing for them to play for. So there's just a lot wrong about this league, but Atlanta got me excited. When they first came in, when they first did their business and did it well, and Arthur Blank seemed like he was doing a good job of getting this team ready and exciting and getting us all behind it, that was what I wanted to see. But now it's just, we've been in this league for 5 years now, and I feel like we've gone from great, better than the MLS, more energy, more quality, entertainment, and now we're just MLS. I don't want to watch that. As somebody that's been watching soccer since I was born, I don't want to watch the MLS. So that's where I am. Yeah. Anyways, that's about all for me. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on the final game and everything with the club right now? Are you in the same boat as me? Are you more of just a casual fan that's just like, go hometown team? That's how I am about the Braves because I don't really like baseball. So I'm just like, yay, we won the World Series. But yeah, just let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe. Future possibly Atlanta United talks, and might see you guys again for Atlanta United, might not, but this is the last video for a while, then you know why. But see you guys when I see you. Peace out.